there's nothing certain about stage racing. It's about as unpredictable as the Irish weather. Look what we've got in Kenmare. It couldn't be worse for what's going to be the toughest day of this race. Now, of course, the unpredictability is reflected too on the leaderboard, the yellow jersey being worn by a new leader, Eric Breukink. But will he still be in front after the 108 miles to Killarney? For there are 5 climbs and 4 sprints around the Beara Peninsula. It's going to be a very tough day. The weather isn't going to help.
It's for everybody the same, and yeah, I said it yesterday, it's difficult to control a race with 5 guys in the team, but we try to do our best.
It looks really bad. It's already a very difficult stage, and with this weather today, it's going to make it more difficult. It's going to be very dangerous in the descents, and especially after the final climb into Killarney, it's going to be very, very dangerous.
Where do you see the threat coming from today?
Yeah, there are some riders who are in a good shape, like Yates and Museo and Maassen, and I think they try something today.
You'll remember Tralee a couple of years ago. How are you looking forward to today?
I think it's like a similar stage as it was then. I don't think I'll be able to do what I did then, you know. Memphis, I'm trying to be conserving my 3rd place overall and just watching out for what Kelly's team does, really, I think.
Do you think Breukink's the man then?
Well, I think, you know, with 20 seconds lead, he's the obvious favourite, and his climbing abilities, you know, he's not going to let them down today. With a strong team, I think they're going to play that card.
What can we expect to see today? Well, Breukink has got to get rid of Museo anyway and not leave anything for him in the sprints tomorrow and Sunday. And Sean Yates has got to be able to climb like he's never climbed before to hang on to Breukink. Those are 2 of the questions. All the answers, Phil.
No one will have the answers until this race begins. The weather is very, very difficult today. There's a good wind blowing, very slippery conditions, and an attack could come from much lower down the field than the favourites we've been talking about, Jimmy.
The last 20 miles, last 30 miles of racing, 2 mighty climbs, but even more so, Phil, that dangerous, lethal descent into Killarney.
It's a very difficult descent. Last time we came here, it was Kim Anderson who came down to Killarney by himself. It could be a new name again this time.
Well, this is definitely going to be the toughest day of the race. The weather conditions have deteriorated. We've got a very misty, wet day here, and it's going to make it very difficult for the riders. The stage today goes out through Laura, on out through Aries, where we've got the first of the BP sprints, then we've another sprint in Alahis. We've got 2 climbs in between Carramore and Knocklegolan, and then we head back in towards Castletownbere. And from there we head over the Healy Pass, and that's where the real racing will probably begin. Drop down back into Laura, back into Kenmare, and then the final climb up of Malls Gap down into Killarney through Ladies' View. It's going to be very tricky. It's going to be very tricky for the riders. I reckon it's probably going to be a fair few abandons today, which is unfortunate, but the tough men are going to come out on top, and hopefully Sean Kelly will be among them.
So they're about to leave Nadine. Kenmare, the picturesque little town that's the perfect link between the Ring of Kerry and the beautiful scenic ring of Beara. All the ingredients are here to make this a memorable stage. The onus is upon the riders to stir it up. But the weather conditions just deteriorating by the second, all of them wearing capes, not brilliant for identification, but off they go, and what is reckoned to be the toughest stage in the 1990 Nissan is on its way. I don't know how they can have an appetite for it on a day like this at all.
I think 1 or 2 of them haven't actually, Jimmy, because this is a most depressing start to the ride, and this really is one of the most beautiful areas of Ireland. And a lot of the riders here wanted to actually see the scenery as well as take part in the Nissan today. Have a nice day, Jimmy. Well, I don't know about that. Even if the sun was shining, this is a vicious day as far as the hills are concerned.
And as always, the PDM Sidona team having a strong hand. Knockray is the first climb. It's only category 3, so 6 points for the first man over the summit here. And there's a very good battle going on. Bruno Cornelet is the man who is the leader in the mountain classification. But Lillywhite and Baker, the 2 Englishmen, have climbed very well. And we'll remember Chris Lillywhite became a hero on the roads of Ireland a few seasons back, 1987, when he was the king of the mountains.
Yes, and that's him in the white jersey in the front line. As we switch to look at a little bit of the back of the race here, you can see the riders well caped up. Gerard Rouet was one of the top French riders near the back there. Rain on the lens of our camera as it gets very, very wet. As we go up towards the top of the climb, we go into the low cloud, And of course our helicopter is having a terrific task in finding his way around the hillsides today. This is Robert Miller, who's deciding the pace is getting a little bit warm. Well, that's one consolation, Jimmy. Although it is raining, the Gulf Stream may be having the effect here, but it is extremely warm today.
It is, and that's nice anyway. The wind is pretty high as well. In fact, I would say even severe in places. Somebody having a little look at the route there is Serge Demeye of the Helvetia La Suisse team. And as they come towards Knockray, let's bring them over with a little spot of music.
Who has a bicycle problem. He seems in no hurry to take a new bicycle, the rider who led the Tour de France this year when he took his lead and then finally lost it to Claudio Chiappucci in the time trial at Villard de Lans. He shouldn't have any difficulty, a man of his talent, in regaining the big field, who are still on this climb of Knockray Mountain, and with the riders at the front are still Gary Baker and Chris Lillywhite. And just look at the conditions as we go down here again back to Ronan Pensek as he goes back up towards the race.
Trying to attach himself to the peloton, coming up now to the summit of Knockray, the first points of the day. Points are available down to 6th position, 1 up to 6 in ascending order. Lillywhite is there very close to the front, Baker as well, and a couple of the Irish amateurs are there making their presence felt one more time.
200 metres to go, and the attack is on. This is Udo Boltz, who is looking over to his left as Lillywhite has gone through on the inside. Up to the white flag, high in the mist now. Who will come around this corner first? Baker and Lillywhite. And one or two of the motorcyclists and the lead car caught off guard there because the riders came very quickly over that last 100 metres. But no doubt Baker was the winner. There we are, Jimmy.
There he is, Gary Baker with the 6 points, Lillywhite is the 5, Paul Slane, the Irish amateur, 4. Graham Miller, one of the heroes of day one, getting the 3 points. Look at this. The helicopter has had to come out of the skies. It's had to land, just visibility not good enough. And that has now landed again. And we're going back to the motorbikes to try and cover as best we can the Nissan Classic for you. And no doubt the pilots and the cameramen will do their very best. But you see the weather getting worse again. Robert Miller putting on the cape. Iries, it's a BP sprint here, and you know the man who's the star of that, Henrik Redant. You're right, he was the first over the line. He really is having a powerful BP sprint series, isn't he, Phil?
He's turning out to be the sprinter, the first one in the bag for Henrik Redant today from his teammate Peter de Klerk, and Paul McCormack comes up for 3rd place for Ireland, but in this race, of course, he rides for an American-sponsored team.
You know, I think it's clearing up just a little bit. We're looking at here at one of the Irish amateurs, Robert Power from Waterford, and just ahead of him there, Robert Miller, 2 Roberts, one a pro, one an amateur. And you know, the rain is easing down considerably. The road is drying out, so you're right, Phil, it is quite warm, although there's still some surface water there.
Well, you did promise me at the start this morning, Jimmy, that it would be okay when we went down to the end of the peninsula. Here we are, Knocknagallen. And now 1 or 2 riders struggling at the back here, and Robert Miller was one of those riders, surprisingly, at the wrong end of this big field. And again, we're seeing Gary Baker, the little man from the ever-ready Halfords team, who is trying to build a points total today. He goes over the climb, the 2nd climb of the day, and is winning again.
You see who was on his tail, though, one more time? Chris Lillywhite. That's a Category 2 climb, so 10 points there for the winner, 9 for Lillywhite. And Lillywhite and Baker now about to take over from Cornier as the king of the mountains.
And not a happy day for Robert Miller, because again he rides just off the back of the big peloton. And the field continue over the coastal road that ducks and dives like a roller coaster.
Really tremendous scenery. If one only had a chance to see it, everywhere there are marshals brandishing red flags, warning the riders, warning the car drivers of the dangers that lurk round every bend. On the descent, way down in West Cork, Achilles is next, and in Achilles there'll be a BP sprint. Just in case they lose their way or have any excuses, it's a well signposted route, just part of the service that a big race like this has to offer the participants. And they're not very much daredevil today. I don't think they can afford to. The wind is a big factor, Phil. It's got to be mentioned. It's blowing right across them. Can't take chances.
Well, the luck of a long-distance rider, Mark Walsham, continues on a flat tyre, waiting for service on a most inhospitable day.
Achilles, the next one for a sprint. Higher up, there's more fog descending upon them, but coming into another sprint. And remember, Redant has the whole thing wrapped up, this whole category. And is that Redant again? It is.
Indeed, yes. That's the second sprint. There's the confirmation, Jimmy. Phil Anderson he beats this time, and Graham Miller, second on day one. He was in third place. Raul Alcala in trouble, Jimmy. The rider in fifth place overall. A little more urgency here as Alcala knocks his own wheel out. The mechanic very quickly on hand. One of the three riders in the PDM team who still hold secret hopes of victory on Sunday in Dublin.
The other two, of course, being Breukink and Kelly. The first Mexican ever to win a stage in Tour de France. There he is in the picture, Raul Alcala.
And of course, this year he added his second victory with his time trial win in the Tour de France. Now he races back. And this is one of the drawbacks with a small team in the Nissan Classic. Only 5 riders. There's no big teammates to help him back into the peloton. He does it himself.
Yes, and a thing like the Tour de France, you have maybe 1 or 2 come back to nurse you up. And this, as you can see, he's got to make it himself. Rod Van Aert is waiting for him. He's the one who's sacrificing. He really is the domestique in this 5-man PDM team.
He's got to catch up first, Jim.
Van Aert and Alcala trying to get back on.
And we passed a Tulip rider, punctured on the left of the road as well. So there might be help on the way if he can come back to these two. But that would be difficult because these two riders are racing up now to the back of the convoy. And that is a very pleasant sight indeed. But it's a bit of a tight squeeze here for the riders today on these narrow roads around the lovely peninsula here in this southwestern corner of Ireland. Puncture here also, Jimmy.
Yeah, this man's in trouble as well. He's
Marcus Schleicher.
Yeah, from the Stuttgart team. Stuttgart have been doing well, and this looks the makings of a bit of a breakaway, and that's Charlie Motte, certainly in the centre of it there.
The yellow jersey on the back, Jimmy. This is a good move because Breukink has read here Charlie Motte's attack and has gone clear of the field.
But do you see who also is there? Monsieur, who's a big challenger to Breukink's yellow jersey.
And taking service here at the back of the race, Vyacheslav Yekimov, as the riders toil up the next climb. We're climbing, in fact, Killarney at the moment, and this is the most dangerous move so far today.
The riders in it, Motte, Breukink, Udo Bolz, Monsieur, Brian Holm, the Danish champion, I believe is there as well, but Breukink is watching the moves. Now, Breukink and Monsieur, two of the big contenders for the overall GC win in Nissan 90 are there.
Well, there's the order over the top. Charlie Motte heading over Dag Otto Lauritsen in the red jersey. Breukink was not too far behind, and there's the result, Jim.
Charlie Motte gets the 6 points. Dag Otto Lauritsen, the Norwegian former policeman, gets the 5. Then Breukink, Bolz and Monsieur. So Monsieur can time trial, can sprint and can climb.
A glimpse there of Eric Caritou, who has been reported as a faller and has hurt his shoulder, but is continuing behind the race. And this looks like Herman Frieson who stopped, Jim. and he's got no saddle. We shouldn't laugh, but he's got no saddle at all. I guess it is a new bike here.
Yeah, well, it's falling apart bit by bit. There's a saddle on this one, but there are no wheels.
Well,
so just a moment and we'll have a complete bicycle for the Histo rider, Herman Friesen.
We can make anything out on the road. It just takes a little longer than usual, but Friesen is away, and he's going to have a hard chase here to get back. 1 or 2 riders coming back after the climb, so he should get back. He's 7th overall in the race. We mustn't forget that at the moment either. And this is Sean Yates, and he's going like a train. He's picked up Martin Early just behind him, who's defending, of course. And Martin Early keeping the cold weather off that injured knee, which is now coming back to form, thankfully, after it's ruined half of his season, though. But it seems okay now. He's taking no chances. Sean Yates brings across Martin Early, and Big Sean is not allowing this breakaway to go. So the top 3 riders now are in this front group.
Yes, the top 3 riders on general classification. The Nissan 90 has been diced out right in front of your eyes. Doing over 40 miles an hour, perhaps down the hill. There's somebody else in trouble. We've had a lot of problems here today, one way and another.
That's Henri Dorgelot, I think, Jim, that.
This Henri Dorgelot from the Tulip team.
Well, this is where the action is. Look at this, and Sean Yates really is on good form this week. He's feeling very, very strong, and he's riding exceptionally well. There's Johan Museau, Eric Breukink. So they're the top 3 riders. In the exact order they are on the overall classification at the moment. Charlie Motte, who was a challenger a year ago, the champion of Denmark, Brian Holm, who started off with a great win, the first road race of the season, way back now in March in the Grand Prix Villa Review in Holland. And the riders at the back getting ready for another change, because this again is Graham Miller, one of the bowler amateur riders, and it looks like he wants a new bike, I think.
Look at the rugged face of the man. Well, that's a souvenir, but I bet the mechanic picks it up before very long. Anyway, Graham Miller's off and away.
So this weather, not surprisingly, causing 1 or 2 problems with the bike, and the riders are fighting not just the race, but also the elements.
Into Castletownbere, home of Ireland's 2nd largest fishing fleet. And in Castletownbere today, there is a BP sprint. But I think just about everybody else has given up on this, because Redant has just reduced this to squatters' rights.
Absolutely right. Look at this. He's won by 3 lengths this time, and again he's got his teammate Peter de Klerk defending nicely and taking 2nd place.
And there it is, Redant from the Lotto team, and remember they have Museo in the top 3 on GC, and remember they're a very strong team, a new team, Peter de Klerk taking the 2nd spot there. A relatively new team, it moves around with co-sponsors over the years. And for one rider, triumph yesterday, torture today.
Yes, indeed, Jimmy. This is Bruno Cornier, the man that won by 10 minutes yesterday, but it looks as though he strained his tendons here, because he has a little bit of tendonitis, inflammation of the tendon, and I think the doctor there is spraying on something to try and freeze it for the finish of the day. Anyway, he seems okay, and he's pedalling back up towards the field, but he's losing his lead in the King of the Mountains competition, which he did take yesterday, because Gary Baker and Chris Lillywhite seem to be fighting it out amongst themselves. The bunch are all together. 1 or 2 of the riders taking time out for a natural break, so I guess they've assessed that the race is still to come.
Well, we would expect the real racing to come around the Healy Pass, and talking about that, didn't Pat McQuaid have a big fall there some years ago?
And he broke his collarbone.
Broke his collarbone.
He did.
Well, today, he's hoping this race doesn't break his heart. What's Charlie Motte?
No, he's calling for service. He's looking for some information from the back of the field there, from his teammate. As we head off towards the Healy Pass, and the riders have feared this. It's long, twisting road, taking it over the summit, and they are approaching it with the greatest of caution here.
The yellow jersey category, that's still very much a contest. The King of the Mountains is about to change ownership, I should think. Either Baker or Lillywhite will take over from Cornier, but one category that's absolutely wrapped up is Redant and the BP Sprints, the white jersey.
Dag Otto Lauritsen in the middle, and we've got Sean Kelly just behind as they make their way now up the big pass.
For them, a spectacular route at Glanmore Lake, brooding deeply. Now the sun seems to be shining here, and occasionally one sees a rainbow, not in this particular picture, but at the summit. Healy Pass is shrouded in mist to spoil the beauty of the place in general, but increase the eerie feeling for the riders. There have been a few attempted breakaways today. We had that 6 or 7 riders away, Charlie Moti at Kenmare, and then later on we had 5 away, including Phil Anderson. But generally, there's no great hustle here, Phil.
No, they're climbing it at a very reasonable tempo indeed. In fact, some would say rather slowly, and this is playing right into the hands of Eric Breukink, because he is a rider who has been a little bit afraid of today, and they're riding it just exactly as he wanted. They're not breaking up at all. They're riding very, very steadily, and I've caught a glimpse of Vyacheslav Yekimov near the front here of the peloton, who's lying in 4th place overall. Also, Sean Kelly is just off the front of the pace here. And the 2 riders that we're expecting fight out the finish, of course, Chris Lillywhite and Gary Baker. That's the way it's been so far today. And look, the riders, Jimmy, on this narrow road are actually going so slowly, they're almost queuing up.
Exactly. Now, Bruno Cornelet, the man in the polka dot King of the Mountains jersey, has a tendonitis. We saw that earlier on. So presumably he's out of the reckoning today at least. He's still in the race. But Lillywhite or Baker could do something. But look at Kelly, aggressive all day, perhaps the most aggressive of the PDM team. But on his right, on his left rather, the picture right there, Eric Breukink in the yellow jersey.
Yes, as I say, going all of the way of PDM at the minute. And Breukink making sure he keeps his nose out of trouble by riding right on the front of the peloton. Here we are, we're heading up towards the mist now, Jimmy. This is the mist that regrettably has stopped our helicopter flying above the riders and showing us this most pretty corner of Ireland. And we're having to stay with our motorbike pilot here. And the pictures, I think you'll agree, are very, very good indeed. This is the back of the big field from our moto number 3. And the average speed today, Jimmy, is just tickling 21 miles an hour. It's hardly fast.
No, it certainly isn't. Despite the fact that there are climbs on it, one would have expected to be a few miles an hour faster than that. And one would also have expected the peloton to fragment and even as many as 2 or 3 groups get going. But as you can see, they're pretty well all together at a gentle pace. And the yellow jersey is enjoying all of this because he doesn't have to express himself too much, and he's well protected there by Kelly and Alkiller. So for PDM Sidona, it's working out just about right.
On the right of the picture there is Gary Baker. Breukink, of course, in yellow. Ron Keeple just behind Breukink.
And you saw the green jersey passing through of the points leader, Johan Museeuw. Now, one wouldn't expect Museeuw to be up here in a climb like this, but then with a gentle pace, it's handy enough for him.
It's increasing a little bit now as the riders want to make sure they hold their lead positions. But as you can see, the riders are not stringing out too much here.
Number 88 there, Jeff Rutter from the Bola USA team. That's the team of Paul McCormick, and Paul has been very good indeed this week. Around this particular area, they've held rally stages, and so it'll be well known to sportsmen on wheels, whether motorized or otherwise. So coming now to the nitty-gritty of the Healy Pass, and Baker is there prominent, so is Lillywhite, and so is Sean Kelly. But it's the 2 Englishmen one more time who are battling it out. And from the Banana Falcon team, the leader here is Chris Lillywhite. Baker trying to stick on his way, but Lillywhite takes this one, Phil, and I think that could very well put him into the King of the Mountains jersey.
Yes, Chris Lillywhite will be going back into the polka dot jersey tonight. There's the result. Lillywhite beats Gary Baker, gets 2 points more than Gary. Sean Kelly comes over in 3rd place. Dag Otto Lauritsen 4th, and Henri Dorgalo takes the 5th place. But the news is now that Chris Lillywhite, with a good result on the one climb to come, could find himself the leader tonight in the King of the Mountains, and that is a distinction he last held in 1987.
Remember, he fell that year, had a serious injury, but continued on gallantly, and his name was painted across the roads of Ireland. Remember, coming through the Curragh, and when we arrived in Dublin, Chris Lillywhite was as famous as Roach and Kelly.
Well, that was the year, Jimmy, when the referees made what I think was the unprecedented decision to, because he was injured, to say to Lillywhite he could retire from the race on the last day, and he would still be awarded the King of the Mountains jersey. And I've never heard of that before, because in stage racing rules, of course, you must complete the full route to keep your award.
Now heading down again towards Laura. They've been out the Ring of Beara, and they'll be heading back eventually into Kenmare again. And there seems to be a bit of an attack off the front. And it's Soren Lilleholt. It's certainly a Hister. Is it a Hister team?
Yes, it is Lilleholt.
Yeah, Lilleholt it is. Soren Lilleholt.
Probably catch a glimpse of his ponytail of one or two riders. Robert Miller started the style a couple of years ago. We've seen them on many riders here. Phil Anderson, Lilleholt, Miller, of course, Laurent Fignon. And there we are, a nice shot of his ponytail.
Soren Lilleholt, 25-year-old from Copenhagen.
Former junior world cycling champion, and this year having an excellent season. He won a stage of Alan Rushton and Pat McQuaid's other promotion, the Kellogg's Tour of Britain. He won that in Hull, where he just pipped Jesper Skibby in an all-Danish fight out in the city of Hull. And now he's having a go for the stage win here.
You got a brief glimpse there of the white jersey of Redant. Guido Winterberg.
Now this looks like a little group getting up. They're happy to work at it, Jimmy, because this wind is very, very troublesome today. Because we are literally on an out and home course. We started from Kenmare. We'll be returning back through Kenmare shortly on our way to Moll's Gap, which begins just outside of the town, but this group is beginning to build.
The three here are Guido Winterberg, Henry Dergelo and Soren Lilleholt.
And in trouble here, we've got Patrick Denut from the Lotto team, so it's not all good news today for Lotto. Hendrik Redant is winning the sprints at the BP sign, but Denut is having a little problem at the back.
Back into Laura, and Sean Kelly still in the vanguard. It does seem to have been reduced, the peloton, in numbers, although that shot may be deceptive. Again, our helicopter camera unable to bring you any story. Indeed, it is Sean Kelly up there, and the yellow jersey not far away from him either. So Breukink on the defensive and doing well.
Phil Anderson on the far left of our picture, and they're doing everything they wanted to do, but the rain is coming down again. The news is, I'm afraid, as we approach Kenmare, the weather has deteriorated even further. Sitting at the back of the race here, the Z rider, Robert Miller, who has been at the back of the race all day, and I don't think he's enjoyed his trip round the peninsula at all.
PDMs with 5 men. It's difficult to control a stage race with only 5 men in your team, but PDM are going a long way towards that. Normally with a 10-man team like a Tour de France, you can block, you can chase. And what a reception they're getting. They got a tremendous send-off from Nadine this morning, and they're getting a welcome back again, reminding us of the song. But in Kenmare there will be another sprint, some more sprint points to be won, but I think that's all a foregone conclusion, the category itself, with Henrik Redant.
Sure. Well, we're approaching the sprint here. It's 4 hours since we were through the town. And as the riders thread the way, then now, Jimmy, they're heading up towards the last big challenge of the day, Moll's Gap, and I would expect to see a number of riders now will want to stretch the field. Here's the sprint into Kenmare, and again, it looks to me as though Redant is making a clean sweep of the sprints today. Yes, he is, to the big chain. Look at this, Jimmy, he wins by lengths, not just by a few inches.
You can hardly even call them sprints because there's no challenge on them. We normally associate sprints with a really tire to tire.
So Henrik Redant goes over the line, a couple of lengths clear, and I think he was ahead of the Irishman Paul McCormack. Let's have a look.
Yeah, there's Paul McCormack coming up. Just having a little chat with him and saying, well done. Paul McCormack's done well too, twice winner from Ross Tolshin, but Henrik Redant has been a sensation in the BP series. Well, you make a lot of friends on wheels. I don't think they've had much time to smell the roses today on this beautiful scenic route, but nonetheless they're part of it now. I look back at the sprint again in Kenmare, and look at that for mastery of a particular category.
And the crowd enjoyed watching it too. Now we're heading up to Moll's Gap, back up into the clouds. This is the descent, which I know, Jimmy, you yourself don't like coming down in a car, never mind by bicycle, back down to Killarney. The last big challenge of the day, here's Raul Alcala. He's had his problems today with that puncture out around the peninsula, but now he's driving at the front, and it looks to me as though they might be moving away with a little group here.
Thomas Wegmuller is in this now. He's a very strong man. Thomas the Tank, he can really get going, and the number 52 frame is that being ridden by the aforementioned Thomas Wegmuller. Number 62 is Christophe Manin from the RMO team. We haven't seen much of him. His team leader is Charlie Motte.
Well, this is the lower slopes of Moll's Gap, and Thomas Wegmuller, Thomas the Tank, has started to pile on the pressure. It's a long climb. It takes us up again into the dizzy heights.
That's Manine, who's just gone ahead of them there.
Yes.
And Royal Alcala with them as well. The conditions are really dreadful. It's raining. The only thing that's to be said in its favour, it's not cold. Number 72, Peter de Klerk from the Lotto team, again showing their hand.
Well, de Klerk has had a couple of second places on the BP sprints today as well, but they're trying to build a group here. This is the best attack we've seen all day, Jimmy. It looks as though we've got about a dozen riders going up. These four are trying to cross the gap. Keith Reynolds there, who was the star yesterday, coming into Cork. He was caught on the last circuit of Patrick's Hill, which stopped him getting second place. He's also in this move, trying to cross the gap.
Moll's Gap is
Yes,
another gap. It's the one
that.
they've got to ascend and pick up the last King of the Mountain points. Moll's Gap, of course, a Category 1. Sorry about that, but we've got to clean the lens or you won't see the pictures. Number 76 is Matt Stevenson. Here's a good lad.
Yes, Matt was in that early move that went on to the breakaway as we started the climb. He's coming back from a very, very bizarre accident in the British Championships this year when he hit another rider head-on as both riders traversed the finishing circuit in the opposite direction. That was really a very bad slice of bad luck for Matt. And Matt is in trouble here because, in fact, he is being left by this group. He isn't catching it. He's going actually away backwards from it. It's a powerful group, this, Jim. The echelon, note the echelon indicating the wind is coming from the very left corner of our picture. So the riders are scrambling up the right-hand side of the road to try and take shelter behind the man in front.
And it is a severe wind today. That's something the riders don't like, but they can echelon and try and take precautionary measures for it. The one thing they wouldn't like, certainly on fast descents, is slippery roads. But at least it's warm for them, so they don't have to stuff paper down their chests on the descents. So what you gain on the swings, you lose on the roundabouts. If you want to be a successful stage rider, you've got to be a bit of everything.
Well, number 22 is Eric Van Lanker, former stage winner here in the Nissan Classic. And number 20 is Luke Rusin. But you see, there's nothing in it, Jim, because you can see the leaders up there. The gap is very much a chance here if they could push it home. But as far as I can work out, we haven't got any of the top three riders in that leading group. So there's a chance they might slip away.
This was known in Kerry as a soft day. But nothing soft about this climb. The mighty Moll's Gap coming so quickly after the Healy Pass. And then after that, there's the one we're just all awaiting on, that descent into Killarney itself before they do the circuit of the famous town. Wegmuller still doing a bit of pushing up the front there to try and get something going. He's a very strong man. Alcala is another man who can climb well. And I think Henk Lubberdink is with him as well, the veteran, nearly 40 years old Dutchman.
I saw Henk Lubberdink ride the Tour de Trump in the United States this year, and he had a very nasty crash as he crossed into New York State on a metal bridge in the rain, and I'm afraid that's ruined his season, and I haven't seen him race, in fact, until the Nissan Classic this week.
Matt Stevens trying to get back on an attachment.
Yes, he's in trouble, I'm afraid, Matt. This has gone on a little bit too long for him today. You can't live on your reserves. He made a good start on the opening day. Then he had a bad time trial on the road to Carrick-on-Shore. Now he's in between the bunch and the break.
As we come to the King of the Mountains Preem on Moll's Gap. And some very good men up there battling for it. Lily White, by our reckoning, is the man who will go into the polka dot.
Well, I think over the top there, it was Thomas the Tank, Thomas Wegmuller, who took the leaders. Here's the result anyway.
Yes, it was Wegmuller. Alcala was next, then Lubberdink. He was there all right. He's, I think, 37 years old now. Bolts, the best of the Stuttgart team, and then the American Ron Giepel.
So interesting, Jimmy. Neither Lily White nor Baker scored because they missed that split in the bunch, which undoubtedly now means that Chris Lillywhite tonight will be pulling on the leader's jersey of King of the Mountains.
And so they begin the descent. And really, this is treacherous. Look at the surface water on the road. Now, at the best of times and the best of conditions, Phil, this is dangerous. But today, there's a wind crossing them, there's the slippery road, and there's the terrain itself.
Yes, in fact, this descent would be the dream of some of the kamikaze bike riders in the professional world. But in these conditions, you're right, Jimmy, it's a very dangerous drop. There's some sharp hairpin bends coming up. and the riders normally would go down this hill at around 50 to 55 miles an hour. Today they'll be lucky to top 40 to 45.
Yeah, they have to be a little bit more conservative today as they make the way all the way down and drop all the way into Killarney. And a big crowd awaits them in Killarney. They certainly know how to support their sport in the Kingdom of Kerry. But then you get used to it if you're a sports follower in Kerry.
Still the circuits of the town to come, of course. And you see they're very carefully, because there's a nasty sensation when you brake when the rims of your wheels are wet, because just before you clear the water off the rim and you touch them with the rubber brake pad, you feel as though you accelerate forward, and that's a very nasty feeling.
And whilst we can drive down here on the gears, these fellas have to drive down on the brakes on their whips.
Yeah, Castorama rally there have obviously had a team call, even though they're on the descent, so we might see a rider on the roadside shortly. Oops, tight squeeze under the bridge. Priority to the riders. Jeff Rutter here, sitting at the back from the United States. Now, this is the Buckler team driving, because that breakaway is still ahead and they want it back, and they're chasing it very, very hard. As far as I know, they have nobody in that leading group, which we believe consists of 7 riders and has a lead of 1 minute, Jimmy.
This is the Buckler team of Foles, Van der Arden, Masson, Neidem and Van Hooydonk, the team that came here with great expectations. And still just a little reminder from our cameraman that we really are in the centre of the Irish Lake District.
This could be like a finish of a stage of the Tour de France now, when you see Jan Ross's Buckler team on the attack to bring back the breakaway in the hope they can provide the man who will win the day. And they won 3 stages in the Tour de France as well.
Last year, the Nissan International Classic was won by Eric Van der Arden. Last year's first is certainly not this year's #1.
But a man, of course, who the Buckler team would hope to win the sprint if they can bring back the breakaway. A quick reminder of the breakaway: Manning, Kiefel, Luberding, Raul Alcala, Kaiser, Bolts and Thomas Wegmuller. Just over 30 seconds ahead.
The Buckler team still trying to push it along, as Phil says, reminds us of days gone by with teams like Super Confex and Buckler and Panasonics trying to bring back the breakaway 7 of Wegmuller, Manning, Alcala, Bolts, Luberding, Kaiser and Keifel.
And just look at this, Cedric Van Hooydonk taking a breather as he slips down the line. Chases on. Frans Masson picks up the pace here. They're determined to bring this breakaway back, and as the 7 riders look as though they're being caught, somebody has gone away there. White jersey indicates it might be the Stuttgart rider, Udo Bolts, who's tried to attack, or Darius Kaiser perhaps, determined to try and stay clear of the field. This is the main field coming in. On the way down the hillside off the top of Moll's Gap, it appears to me there is a definite split in that field, Jimmy, and I think some 40 riders in the chase group.
Yeah, and the Stuttgart boys are trying to assert themselves. Henry Kuiper rather pleased with his team on their performance in this Nissan, and indeed it is Udo Bolts, as so correctly identified there by Phil Liggett. So they will have a first passage then of Killarney, and then they'll do the circuit. It's a 2-mile circuit around the town of Killarney. And wait till you see them when they get in here to High Street, the number of people who are there to see them. 58 at the back of affairs then is Darius Kaiser.
So he's come back, Jimmy. He was in that leading group. He's been swept up. Now this is a reactionary group here, and this looks to me like it's Christophe Manin, who was in the breakaway, and he's still clear and still trying to hold off the field.
But amazingly, Phil, they're still pretty well all together after all these miles and all these climbs. One would have certainly thought that there would have been a bit more action than this today, and certainly a few more sprints.
Yes, a lot of riders have lost their chance of winning the Classic today because they haven't put enough into the action. It's been a difficult day for the professional riders, there's no doubt about that. And it's gone all of the way of the PDM boys, that's for sure. But here we are, we're into the home straight, which isn't the home straight yet, of course. We've still got the 2 miles circuit still to come. And we've got 2 riders in the lead, and looking down there, that looks to me as though Jim van der Leer has joined Christophe Manin. The 2 riders just ahead of what is about 40 riders in the Nissan Classic, and in that group of 40 are non-missing of the top 10 riders overall in the race. You can see the gap as we go through for the first time.
First passage of Killarney.
5 seconds is the official time gap on the chase of the two leaders. They'll need more than that, Jim, to hold this lot off now.
Swing left off High Street, just barely touch on Rock Road and make a left into St Margaret's Road.
Well, Christophe Manin from the RMO team, and if you were watching yesterday, you'll remember that Philippe Bouvatier, we did show you him with the commissaire having a little bit of a tete-a-tete during the time trial. Well, in fact, Philippe Bouvatier rather was disqualified, so the RMO team are down to only 4 riders, and one of them's in the lead, so there's not too many behind to help him out.
So they're now stretched out a bit, which immediately signifies that the speed is up, the tempo of the race is up, and they'll be able to give the big crowd in Killarney something to cheer about.
So very typical finish now. The riders are out of the shadow boxing mode. The race is continually splintering as they grab for wheels. The pace is on, and the chase is on too, because there are 2 riders they want back in the fold.
53, Carla Bowmans, the former champion of Belgium. That honour is now on the shoulders of Claude Coquillon, who's not riding this Nissan.
Panasonic, Jim, the red jerseys, because Olaf Ludwig is their sprinter for the big finish.
Olaf Ludwig, remember, is the man who won the green jersey in Tour de France for consistency and points. That's a little narrow one there, isn't it? As we look back the lot, I'm sure I saw the yellow jersey of Broikik. He certainly won't be far off it. There's the green jersey of Musio there. Sean Kelly's up with that lot. Udo Bolts. It's just a quick glimpse of Martin Early passing through the shot. And the crowds are great here. They're used to coming out to celebrate sports events, because the Sam Maguire Cup's been more often in this county than any other club.
Well, there's still plenty of riders wanting to try and split away from the front of this group. Very active at the front there is Vyacheslav Yekimov from Panasonic, but he will hope that Olaf Ludwig can come and win the sprint at the end. The red jerseys are the Panasonics, guarding every little attack that goes off the front. You can see that the 2 boys in red are not taking the lead. Their ambition is to keep this race tightly packed together, and the rider about 10 riders down in the red jersey is the one who is looking for the win, and that is Olaf Ludwig.
Yeah, the 2 Panasonic men who are prominent are both from behind the former Iron Curtain, Ekimov of the Soviet Union and Ludwig of East Germany, or what used to be East Germany, until Wednesday of this week. There's the yellow jersey just there of Eric Broikink, the Dutchman. Sean Kelly, as always, right up with them. If you come to see Kelly, you enjoy it.
And amazingly, Jimmy, he's only ever won 2 stages of the Nissan Classic, and it would be nice to see him slip through in between the main field and the main bunch. And in fact, they include Robert Miller and Ronan Pensek, so they're off the back as well.
Famous cycling photographer Graham Watson running through the shot there to get up to get the photographs that no doubt will...
Now, let's have a look what's going to come through here now, because these riders have been told to keep out of the race now while the big sprint comes through. I'm quite surprised it is going to be a big sprint. There's Gary Thompson, who had a great victory in the milk race a few years ago and is now back in action here in Ireland, riding for an American team.
Gary, one of the Irish Olympic team in Los Angeles, 1984. We're just waiting until the race proper is clear of the circuit, and then they can go again.
Now, back to the big race, because the riders are out of the way. Edwig van Hooijdonk leading the charge. Johan Lammert's going round there in 2nd place. And the field building up for what is going to be the big sprint, the battle of the sprinters, but they've got to first of all catch the opportunist, and they're going now 35 miles an hour on the flat.
It's anybody's race, it's anybody's stage, and Sean Kelly must certainly be entertaining thoughts of it. He's nicely prominent right up there in the first 7 or 8.
Yes, and this looks like Steve Bauer having another dig. He has a terrific turn of speed.
Remember him in the World Championship the year, the controversial end with Claude Coquillon. There's the green jersey of Musio.
And there's the white jersey just in front of his teammate Redant. Redant, remember, is going to lead out Musio now because he's won all the sprints today. He obviously feels confident, but it's the speed here, and I think this is Yekimov who's trying to rip this field apart with his pure speed. And then if he can do that, he hopes he'll soften them up nicely for his German teammate Olaf Ludwig to finish them off in the sprint for home.
And if that happens, Ludwig would be very much a favourite. Ekimov doing his best. What a great rider he is, and what an even better rider he's going to be in the years to come. It's certainly his first year as a professional. They've made him work, and that's for sure.
Attacked by the Helvetia La Suisse team, and I wonder if that is Michael Wilson, who did so well in Cork yesterday, who's now trying to outmaneuver them and beat them to the line.
Michael Wilson and Luigi Furlan are the two Helvetia Swiss riders who are prominent in this.
It's a final effort, and he hopes it'll last on, but they're coming down on him very, very fast indeed. One or two of those Panasonics who've done their best to keep this race together, now slipping to the back of the bunch and hope that Ludwig can pull off the sprint that matters. They're moving up very, very quickly on the Helvetia rider, and they've got him now. The sprinters are going to line up for the sprint for the line. Round the corner, and Etienne de Wilde is second around that corner. And also in the green jersey is Johan Museu, and not too far behind him is Redan de Wilde. Museu on the left. De Wilde comes after him. Sean Kelly is in third place, but look at this. Museu is going to finish this one off in the green jersey. He's had a fourth, a third, and a second, and Etienne de Wilde chased him on the line, but too late. Johan Museu finally gets the win after 3 Nissan Classics. He's finally got the win he wanted.
A long sprint to the line that reminded one of his win in the Champs-Élysées in the Tour de France. So in the Nissan of this year, he's been third in the Waterford, second in the trial, fourth at the Cork, and first into Killarney. Sean Kelly is in third place, probably just cut off at the pass, as to say, by Olaf Ludwig. Olaf Ludwig finishing in fourth position, Jelle Neidem fifth, for the winner, Museu. And so the stage result confirmed. Museu the winner, Etienne de Wilde second, Sean Kelly third, Olaf Ludwig in fourth position. That's a nice scalp for Kelly, and Jelle Neidem in fifth position. In the end, a great circuit, Killarney, at high speed.
So the overall situation, on a day we expected changes, there simply wasn't any. No change at all overall. Breukink keeps his 22 seconds lead over Museu and Sean Yates. In fourth place is Vyacheslav Yekimov.